look, man, this is what I'm trying to get you to understand.
If you're the leader and it's working, it's because of you, brother.
At the end of the day, you are the man. You're the dad. You're the father. You're the husband. Stick up for yourself. Know your worth. Set your boundaries. And then when people cross those boundaries, put them back in place lovingly.
You're showing a lot of love to this family.
I am the person that he can look up to. Okay, what's happening right now is testing my patience. Realize that they're kids and try to go into those situations with just more love. She and I are standing, side by side, leading the family together. But ultimately, it's our role or our responsibility as the dad and father to kind of lead the family. And
there's a lot of respect for you, and they really love you, and you cherish them. It's because of you. You see yourself as the leader of your household.
100%.
They respect him because of the way he loves them.
If you're a man that controls his own destiny, a man that is always in the pursuit of being better, you are in the right place. You are responsible. You are strong. You are a leader. You are a force for good. Gentlemen, you are the Alpha, and this is the Alpha Quorum.
Welcome back to the Alpha Quorum Show. Brad Singletary here. You guys, this is episode 103. We've got a special treat for you today. So a couple of times a year, we like to highlight some men who are just out there doing good things. And so at the end of the year, we do a Man of the Year. And during June, we ask for nominations for a Father of the Year. And our guest today is the 2023 Father of the Year. He's just got a remarkable story. He's doing amazing things. We did a 9 or 10 minute video where we highlighted some of with his children and his wife and his life, and some nice comments that were shared by his kids and his wife. And he was nominated by a friend. And I sort of started checking into things and doing a little background check to make sure this guy's cool. And his wife was just very warm and very happy about this recognition, and just seemed very complimentary about him. So without further ado, gentlemen, please welcome 2023 Father of the Year, Mitch Baxter.
That's right. What's up,
Mitch,
man?
what's happening, man?
Hey, man.
So glad to have you on here, man. So Mitch is
Thanks for having me.
You're in Mississippi right now. Is that right?
Yeah, southern Mississippi, down in Biloxi.
Wow. Is that right on the Gulf?
Yeah, it's right there on the Gulf, probably 15 miles away from the actual coast.
From the water, yeah. So I grew up in North Florida, kind of the panhandle of Florida. We were probably, I was probably 6 hours from Mississippi. And
okay.
I was in the like Tallahassee area. Oh, you lived in Florida?
Yeah, I was stationed over there in the Northwest Florida, though. Not too far from you, but Fort Walton Beach, Destin area.
Okay, yeah. Air Force Base there?
Yeah.
Okay. I have a guy that I'm working with who just moved down there. So anyway, we've got this cool video. I think I may splice it in later as part of this show, just to highlight Mitch and some of his family stuff. So you were nominated 2023 Father of the Year. We sent him a shirt and a gift card and a couple little things like that, and a nice little plaque and stuff. When you heard about that, or when this came to light for you, what were you thinking?
When my wife, who was it? One of the kids, they said that I had to come see something, and I was like, "Great, what happened?"
Yeah.
When you have 4 kids, if somebody's saying you need to come see something, you automatically think something bad happened. So you're like, "Oh, great, what is it now?" So I walk in, and they're all sitting on the couch, and somebody's got their phone on me, video recording my reaction. I'm like, what is happening, dude? So, and there's a box right there on the coffee table of all the goodies you guys sent me. And they had the video pulled up there on the YouTube link that you sent them. And that was just really cool. I was just kind of in shock. I was like, what the heck? Like, I honestly couldn't believe, because I remember you posted about
asking for
nominating some folks. And I saw Tyler had named me. I was like, Tyler, I've known Tyler for a while, and I was just kind of surprised, honestly, that anyone would nominate me. But Tyler in particular, because we're old friends, but we haven't really kept up too much over the years. And it was just kind of cool to see that he thought enough of me to kind of nominate me that way.
So you're a Vegas boy, right? You said you grew up here in Las Vegas, which is a rare thing. This is kind of a transient town, and very few people, small percentage of people live here, grew up here. But how'd you end up in Mississippi? Was that an Air Force thing, or was that with your job, or what?
Kind of, sort of, yeah. So I got out of active duty the end of 2017 after 6 years of active duty. Mm-hmm. And then I was a firefighter in the Air Force. So I got out of active duty, moved back home with my parents, and I was kind of like in transition with like a divorce and all kinds of stuff. So I was kind of like going from my old life, married, active duty, military, and then kind of going into this new single life. So I ended up in Mississippi really just because it was the first good job offer I was given after the military. And it took about 6 months or so to get here, just because they weren't really hiring like they are now. Mm-hmm. So I probably put out 25 different applications all over the country. And one of the guys that I deployed with, actually, he happens to see my application come across, and he gives me a call and he said, hey, are you serious about taking this job? Because, you know, it's Southern Mississippi. No one really ever thinks to go down there. So I was like, yeah, you know, I'm ready. So he said, all right. Gave me a call a week later, and they offered me the job. So I just kind of showed up. I came down here with just a dog, a dirt bike, and a duffel bag full of clothes, really.
That's awesome. So how long were you in the Air Force?
6 years. So I joined 2011, November 2011 is when I went into basic training. Mm-hmm. I did that, went to the fire academy, and then I was first stationed in Germany from 2012 to 2015. Mm-hmm. And then deployed once, and then I got sent to Florida for my final 2.5 years.
Wow. So talk about some of the things about your family. You have a blended family, which is it's a miracle that, you know, that it seems to work so well. I could tell by the pictures, you know, I'm a therapist, so I look at people's faces and just kind of feel their vibe a lot, you know, and I know a lot of people can fake pictures, and people talk about, you know, social media is just the highlight reel and all that. But I really get this sense, man, from what these kids said in their little letters to you, what your wife talks about, and just the look on your faces, the way they lean into you when they're hugging you, man. I can tell there's something cool going on. So talk about just how your family sort of became what it is, and how you make the blended stuff work so well.
I asked my wife that because I was thinking about some things on how to answer that. And I asked her, I was like, well, how do you think that we make this work so well? Because I was curious to see what she would say. And she actually kind of had some of the same things I had in mind. And one of the things I think what first makes it work so well is I came into this without any kids. Mm-hmm. So that really kind of eliminates a lot of the stress and kind of just environmental kind of problems that some families face when it comes to families with kids kind of joining up. So it was just me. And she had her 3 kids from a previous marriage. Mm-hmm. And so that really kind of helped alleviate some of the stress there. And then also like, I know a lot of times, like when the stepdad kind of comes into play and he's trying to take on that father figure role with discipline and those kinds of things, you know, she really has my back. So if something ever comes up where one of the kids need to be disciplined or something like that, and if I say something, and let's say a lot of times maybe they might not like it. Like if I discipline or say no about something, they may not like it. There's been times where they'll go to mom and they'll ask the same thing and say, oh, can I do this? And she'll immediately say, well, what did Mitch say? And they'll be like, he said no. They're like, well, then it's no. And so she doesn't kind of go around me in that way. So she'll have my back. And, but outside of that, we really just support each other. We're patient with one another. She understood that I came into this with no kids. So I was just kind of dad overnight kind of thing. So I didn't have kids before. And so she really was patient with me when it came to just kind of doing the dad thing and kind of figuring out how to do that. And then obviously she has a lot on her hands. And so I tried to be very much involved in kind of what's happening in the house, day-to-day upkeep of the house and dinners and chores and homework or whatever else, taking care of the house, the cars, the kids, whatever it might be. So I don't like to just kind of be home and just kind of sit around. I've got to be kind of doing something. So, yeah, we just try to make sure we help each other with whatever it might be at the time.
So I think she was talking about she works as well, right?
Yeah.
So when she's gone, you may be on a couple of days off or whatever, but then if she's working, you're handling all this stuff, and you have the baby now. How old's the baby?
Yeah. He will be 7 months this week.
Oh my goodness. So from ages like 12?
12, 10, 7 and 7 months.
Wow. So that's a lot of responsibility, man. We talk a lot about leadership and about like attitudes and actions and those kind of things. You must have shown up to this scene with a pretty decent attitude. I mean, a lot of guys look at this and they're saying like, oh, this responsibility. They would run from a woman like that, that meaning someone with children and stuff like that. And so for you to jump in there and just, it seems like you have had a really good attitude about your opportunity in the life of these kids.
Yeah, for sure. I know it seems a lot like these days, especially, there seems to be kind of a mindset among the younger men or kind of men in general who are single and on the dating scene. There's a lot of this like anti-single mother kind of mindset or kind of behavior towards women who have kids. And, there is some, validity to those concerns. It's not for everyone, and some people just can't do it. But unfortunately, there is that kind of mindset about, single moms, stay away from them, kind of thing. But I had always wanted a family. I kind of expected at some point I was going to become a father, and do the things that my dad did and everything like that. But my previous marriage, I just kind of came to the realization that once it finally ended, that this person wasn't somebody I was ever going to want kids with. And I, just kind of decided that it finally needed to end so that I can kind of move on and create a life that I've, knew that I deserved, and it wasn't going to happen with that person. So I came into it knowing that this is something that I wanted. And I knew her before though too, before we had gotten engaged or started dating. Yeah. And so I knew already that she was a great person. She came from a good family and stuff like that.
Oh yeah. She said you were one of her brother's friends.
Yeah. Yeah. We knew each other in high school, and she was a couple grades younger than me, and she was always kind of around. I had always thought she was my friend's cute sister or whatever. But I mean, outside of that, it was just that's kind of just all it was. And then, it just kind of seemed like the stars aligned, where our lives just kind of transitioned to the point to where they could both kind of line up. I was getting out of the military. I had already separated from my wife. She had already separated from her ex-husband, and we were both, unbeknownst to each other, we didn't know anything about each other's personal lives. We had both kind of started this new life moving forward on our own. And then we both kind of just linked back up and just started creating a new relationship.
Well, it seems like you're doing fantastic things, man. Just want to congratulate you again. That's well deserved. I can just feel it when I hear from their little stories and the things and watch some of the things that you guys have done in the videos. There were some things I wish I knew how to steal people's Facebook videos, because there's a couple of videos of you, like, I don't know, dancing around in weird, costumes and stuff like that. If I could save that to my hard drive, I would have.
Good ones on there.
It just seems like, man, you have all of those, those red 9 kind of principles about, you're just really engaged. You're a responsible man. And, you seem to be disciplined. It's funny. I could tell as time goes on, I'm like, man, he was really working out during this period. He looks a little slim and trim. And then there will be another couple years of life as I'm looking at all those pictures. I'm like, oh yeah, he did what I usually do, fall off the wagon, and then I see you slim up and tone down again. And I got emotional, dude. I was telling Natalie, right?
Yeah.
I was telling her, I'm like, I'm sitting here crying looking at this video. I never even met this dude.
Yeah, it was great when I saw that. I tried not to let my family see it, but there was a few moments where I was getting a little teary-eyed and choked up. I can't let the kids see me cry, so I was just, no. I got to be the tough guy now. But no, there was a few spots in there that got me pretty choked up because, we could just get caught up in life and don't really take time to really look back and kind of count your blessings. But that was nice.
I saw a couple of particularly cool things was just what your son was saying there about, throwing the ball and just being involved with the sports and just participating in it. What he talked about was the boy things, and like some of those things. And the girls talked about how nice you were, like on the feminine end of things, the feelings and whatever. And he's all about the action. And I saw you guys with the dirt bikes and stuff. So very cool stuff. If you guys haven't watched that video, maybe I'll attach it to the end of this. And just check out, here's a man who seems to be doing it right in an uncommon situation, I guess, as a stepfather. And then now his biological son was born. What's his name?
Frank Thomas.
Frank. Yeah. Okay. Is that a family name or?
Frank is not.
Okay.
On her side it is, but it wasn't. We didn't name him
because of that.
For that. But Thomas is my grandfather's first name on my dad's side. Frank. It was kind of a joke, actually. I had always told my ex, because I had always wanted kids, and I joked around and said, if we ever had a kid and it's a boy, I'm naming him Frank. Because how cool would it be? And if he goes to introduce himself and he says, hey, how you doing? Frank Baxter, and that was always just kind of had a cool ring to it to me. So I just kind of thought that would be cool. And she actually was into it. So we kept it, and we had a few other names. I also kind of wanted John McClane.
Oh,
but she wasn't into that either.
Well, congrats again, man. I want to talk about some just general things about your life. I think you're fairly young. When you look at, when I look at military life, when I look at divorce, when I look at, your role as a first responder, you're not really as old as you are. I mean, I just think you've seen a lot of life. You've seen a lot of things. I can tell you have this wisdom beyond your years. So talk about some of the most difficult challenges you've faced in your life, and how did you grow from those, and what good come out of that?
I was trying to think of some examples, and dude, honestly, I'm pretty blessed to have, I wouldn't say an easy life, but man, I haven't had to deal with some of the struggles some people have dealt with in life, because there's a whole lot of crap people can go through. And I've been pretty blessed. I think, honestly, some of the, I guess, more challenging things I've done, mentally or maybe emotionally or whatever, but would be, military service. I'm looking back on that whole experience. I don't really know what led me to just kind of do it, because no one in my family was military, and no one in my family's firefighter or first responders, police, or anything like that. I just kind of realized I was at a turning point where I needed to figure out what I'm going to do with my life. I'm like, okay, I could just sit here in Vegas and work construction, or I could go do something else. And so I just went and talked to the recruiter. And so I guess just kind of blazing that path on my own and just kind of deciding that that's what I was going to do. That was mentally tough, because you go through being away from family, you're in basic training, and, the whole point of that is to be stressed out and tired and physically and mentally fatigued. And so just getting through that every day. The fire academy, because I was married at this point too, so I'm away from my new wife. Getting through basic training, then I went straight into the fire academy, which was also 3.5 months. So the first year of our marriage, I was gone for 6 months.
Wow.
And then immediately after that, I think, well, to kind of backtrack. So when it comes to the basic training in the fire academy, I think the best way I got through that really was just having a good support system. Really, like back then we had a lot of letters back and forth to my family while I was in basic. And then in the fire academy, had a really good group of other young men that were kind of going through the same thing. They were all away from their family and their friends and stuff. So we were all kind of in the same situation, just kind of supporting one another. And then my wife and I, at the time, we'd moved to Germany. So we were newly married. We had just spent 6 months apart from each other. And then now we're packing all our stuff to live in a different country.
Wow.
And, and that was the first time I had been overseas. Same for her. I'm trying to think. So here, I'll backtrack a little bit. So I'll talk a little bit about my relationship with her over there in Germany, because I think now that I think about it, that's probably one of the more challenging things I think I may have experienced.
Okay.
So my wife and I had moved to Germany. We were stationed there. That was my first base. And in terms of just like life challenges, I wasn't really prepared for the changes that she was going to go through with her mental health, and kind of how that would impact me and our relationship and stuff like that, and kind of my own mental health. So being overseas with a new wife, she had kind of dealt with a lot of depression. She had some, she has a term, it's called trichotillomania. So it's like a hair pulling disorder. So she had that, and I knew she had that, but it didn't, because we were still living in Vegas, she had her support system and stuff, but now we're living in Germany. We don't know anyone. And our first house over there was in a village surrounded by Germans who didn't really speak English. And so we were really just kind of like on an island by ourselves. And so she went through a lot of mental health struggles, and that kind of wore on me pretty tough, trying to, I'm starting my career, basically. I'm trying to learn how to be a firefighter, get all my certifications, and also kind of mentally and emotionally support her through her struggles. And so I think kind of just going through all that, I really learned a lot about how to be patient, how to kind of just support somebody else through their struggles while I'm dealing with my own kind of stuff inside. Because I had to basically just kind of forget about all that, because she was dealing with so much. And if I put that on her, it was just kind of snowball and make it all worse. So that was tough. Yeah, for sure.
How long were you married?
We were together. We were married almost 7 years, but I think by the time the divorce was finalized, it was right at about 7 years. Yeah, because we got married right at the beginning of 2011, and then we divorced so just under 7 years. We divorced the beginning of 2017.
Mm-hmm. So was there a deep, like, emotional, recovery process like that for you? I mean, when I got divorced, I lost it. I kind of like completely crashed and burned in a lot of ways. A lot of guys struggle with that whole adjustment afterward. But how did you manage yourself after that? Like,
well, I had approached her for divorce 3 times, and on the 4th time, like I said, it was the final time. It was kind of like it was a now or never moment for me. And so once that finally happened, we were actually on vacation in Vegas, and this was after I had already separated from the military, and we stayed in Florida for a little while. So we were in Vegas on vacation, and I told her, kind of went through that whole discussion that, I'm leaving kind of thing. I flew back to Florida. She stayed there. She never went back home to Florida. She just stayed in Vegas at her parents' house. So I flew back to Florida. I packed all of her things, her car, and I drove her dog and all her stuff in her car. I drove it from Florida to Las Vegas, and then I flew back again to pack up all of my stuff in the same month. 2 weeks later, drove back to California and moved to my parents' house. And it was just like I was living this one life every day with a wife in Florida. Just got out of the military, and I was doing some other stuff. I wasn't doing the first responder thing at first outside the military. I was doing like insurance or whatever. I had this one life, and then like literally within a 2 week time span, that was all gone completely. And I think when you're the person seeking out the divorce, it's easier to cope because you've probably already divorced yourself from that person mentally and maybe emotionally. I think that's kind of where I was coming from. It was a little easier. She was devastated. I could tell from her kind of recovery and stuff like that. But I was just real lucky that my parents were there, and there was space available for me and my stuff and stuff like that. I mean, I didn't have a whole lot. Like I said, I had a dog and a dirt bike and a trailer full of tools and clothes and stuff, but that was it. I did notice, though, that I think what a lot of young men go through is at the time there was this kind of movement that I think is pretty toxic now that I think about it, but it's called MGTOW.
Oh, yeah,
MGTOW.
Men go their own way. Yeah.
Men going their own way, which the whole idea behind it kind of makes some sense, but the people that were really kind of pushing that whole mindset were kind of really just kind of toxic towards women. And it just wasn't a healthy way to, I didn't think it was a very healthy way to kind of view women and relationships with them and stuff like that, because I kind of started to adopt some of that, It's just not healthy. I don't know if you kind of know what I'm saying. I know you're
like
familiar
Rollo
with
Tomasi.
it, yeah, Rollo Tomasi and his what is it? He's got a book,
Rational Male.
Yeah, I started reading that, and it's kind of just, it's not a healthy way to look at women. They kind of look at them as like you use them for your own physical desires and then you discard them, kind of thing. Everything you do is for your own good, and but you can't really think about it that way when it comes to women in relationships and spouses and stuff like that. And so in terms of after the divorce, I kind of adopted some of those ideas, and I noticed myself kind of just getting bitter towards women, and it was just stupid.
Yeah. Really. Some of that stuff, I read some of that early on, like when we started the Alpha Quorum stuff, I was reading everything, all that stuff out there. And it was enlightening for me. It was like interesting. Some of it, my perspectives changed some. I liked a lot of what it was saying, because it told me some hard truths that I had no idea about. And I wish someone would have told me, but the whole philosophy, I can't buy all of it. And then once I found out who he is and that he's got an Instagram and all that, I just thought, oh yeah, no, this is not my type of masculinity or whatever here. So
yeah,
who taught you how to be a man? Like, what were the influences and who were the models for you? What did they teach? Who were the special men in your life? And like, give us a couple things that you may remember or try to use that they modeled for you or taught you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, number one would be my dad. My dad's an excellent example of a man, and even more so, even a better example of a father. It wasn't really anything in particular. I think anyone who has a good dad or good father figures, like it's nothing, not one thing in particular. It's just kind of how they carry themselves, what they do on a day-to-day basis. They show up, all those things. And that was my dad, really. He worked hard. He still does. He's worked hard. He's worked hard his whole life, and that's all I've ever seen. My dad would get up 6 o'clock in the morning. He was usually gone before the sun came up, and he always there's a distinct smell of my dad that all of my siblings can recognize, and it was the smell of concrete.
Oh yeah.
And just like that smell of concrete, dusty, dirty concrete smell. Mm-hmm. And he would come home and his truck smelled like that. He smelled like that. His hands. That's just, concrete, hardworking man kind of smell. But from him, I always just noticed that if it's something that needed to be done, he just did it. There was no complaining about it. If it was something that needed to be done around the house, he was fixing it. If something was happening in our lives or whatever, and it was like out of his control, that I learned early on from him that if it's out of your control kind of thing, don't worry about it. Like if you can't control it, there's no reason to worry about it anyways. Just let it happen. Whatever is going to happen, let it happen, because the more you worry about it, the more stress and anxiety you're going to just kind of get from it. So he was my number one kind of example. And then I grew up in the LDS church. So I had a lot of, the church focuses a lot on family and stuff like that. So I had a lot of young men's leaders, a lot of guys in church that were just kind of good examples that way too. Similar to my dad, they all seemed kind of just like good dads. A lot of my friends, like I got a friend, Josh McDonald. I don't think he's in the group, but his dad, Russ McDonald, he's out there in Las Vegas. He's one of those kind of MacGyver types, very handy. He can fix anything. He was the one that taught us all the ropes and knots and how to do all the cool Boy Scout stuff.
Right.
Cool camping stuff, survivor stuff. And then I got another friend, his name's Shane Anderson. His dad, Wes Anderson, he's one of our Boy Scout leaders and stuff too. He was always, I've noticed with him, he wasn't so much of the handy type or MacGyver type, but he always just kind of had this super just cool, calm, and collected personality. He had a whole group of us butthole 12, 13-year-old kids, boys. We were little assholes a lot of the time, really, and doing stuff we weren't supposed to. And even when he was at his most angry, it was like very, very calm. And I really appreciated that, because I was like, man, we are being just total jerks, and this guy is just like, he's keeping his cool. So that was some of the examples I've noticed growing up from other men around me, besides my dad, at least.
So have you ever mentored other guys, in a way like the youth programs or stuff like that? You mentioned that you were a part of, or probably there were, things through the military or leadership in your work in the fire and stuff. So how about your influence on other men or young men?
I was thinking about that, and I hope I'm not the only one, but I feel like when I think about myself as a mentor, I don't know. Like, man, I was like, I don't know if I've been that much of a help to people, and I'm sure I have, and I know I probably have, but I think in the areas that I've been able to kind of help other men or young men the most would be through military and service and with the fire department, because inherently you do just kind of have to take on a leadership role at some point in your career. You can't just be
along for the ride,
following the chief kind of thing your whole time. So it's kind of, you're forced to progress through your career. So in the military is really cool, because you start out real low in the ranks, and then as you progress, you start to promote and things like that. And so the military kind of thing was cool, because with the fire department, it's different. So you have rank structure in the military, and then you have rank structure in the fire department. And even though I was active duty Air Force military and we wore the uniform every day, there was still kind of the mindset that firefighting took precedence over
military.
The military side of things, because we had firefighter, we had driver, we had the truck captain, and then you have your station captain, and then your assistant chiefs and fire chiefs. But we were still all military, but that was what we did at work. We just wore the uniform kind of thing. So when it came to the other young men, it's kind of a cool experience, because you're kind of, at some point, you're forced to train the junior firefighters, because they're constantly coming and going, and you're helping them get their certifications, training them, teaching them how to be a firefighter, because they come out of the academy thinking they know all the things to be a firefighter, when you really kind of have to bring them down a notch a little bit every now and then. Some of them are pretty humble, but there's a few guys who just come in and think they just have all the answers to everything. And you really just kind of have to knock them down a few notches and humble them. And sometimes you have to do that through physical fitness type motivation. And then some other ways it's more on the educational side of things. Cause some of them, they're just, they're still kids and maybe for lack of a better term, they're just dumb. And you really kind of have to do the tough love kind of thing, especially with firefighting. I mean, it's kind of the paramilitary mindset where you have a chain of command you have to follow. And, but once you kind of get going and you've kind of assimilated into the whole firefighting culture and stuff like that, it's a really good place to be for sure. But yeah, in terms of mentoring other young men, I think that's probably where I've had the most impact was just training junior firefighters, leading them on how to be firefighters, how to kind of be part of the group and part of the culture and how to adopt a lot of that into their own lives. Cause you can't just treat it like any other job. You have to maintain your physical fitness inside and outside of work. A lot of times certifications you're taking, you can't just study at work. You have to also study at home. So I've been able to help bring up a lot of, I would say dozens of really good firefighters. And I was able to be a part of their kind of career progression, which is always cool. Because now some of those guys have outranked me. They're off doing really cool stuff. They're paramedics in California. One of the guys I came in with is now a fire chief.
Wow.
In his city fire department. So he's an all-star. He's like top tier. But it's been pretty cool.
I bet those guys have learned a lot more than, fire and first aid stuff from you. I bet they picked up a lot from you. And it's funny, my oldest son is a new EMT. He's probably been at it, 5 or 6 months or something.
Yeah,
but
I saw that.
He talks about, they go out, he works for one of these private ambulance companies and he's brand new as an EMT, but he goes out there and he's talked about some of the Clark County fire guys who kind of have, I don't know what the term is, but when they show up to a thing, they really are in charge of all this stuff, really. And they kind of have, somehow there's some authority over these ambulance companies. But anyway, he talked about how they would be sometimes gruff and correct him and tell him. And I said, that's masculinity, son. These guys are taking their jobs very seriously. They're very responsible, and there might be some abrasiveness to how they teach you, but you need to be thankful for that and realize that they're where they are for a reason, and you're where you are for a reason. And to teach and to lead another, younger sort of apprentice type or whatever. Anyway, that's just been funny to hear him, the things that he talks about the Clark County guys. Yeah,
it's funny that you say that because when you're saying that, you mentioned the term gruff. It's funny because as you're talking, I'm thinking probably a few different examples of where I had to be pretty gruff with some of the firefighters. And because I'm a pretty laid back dude at work too. Unless it's time to work and do business, but there's moments training the young firefighters and it's like you're talking to a kid sometimes, turn left, and then they turn right and you freaking lose. You blow a lid, dude. But sometimes that's what it takes is you really have to just lose your crap on some of these kids. And, you say you're yelling so that everyone around you can hear instead of, I'm not yelling because I'm yelling at you. I'm yelling to make sure everyone else hears, kind of thing. But
that's a tough part of the job sometimes when you're the leader is to be corrective and directive. That's something I want to try to address more on the podcast is we've got a lot of nice guys out there. And sometimes when you're a man, you got to speak up in a way that's just loud and clear. The lion has to roar sometimes. And I think we need to understand the power of that, of course, hopefully without overusing it. But so you seem like you've got a lot of positive energy. That's something I noticed, and I can tell even today. You're just earlier when I asked about challenges, before you started talking about divorce, you were kind of saying, yeah, my life's been good. I bet you've had ordinary challenges like a lot of people, but you got this cool attitude. You have extremely positive energy. I don't know what not hyperactivity, I don't think, but just the way you carry yourself seems fairly pleasant. And I know if you've been on a long 72-hour shift or something, you aren't pleasant, but like, how do you maintain, like, where does this energy come from?
I
I mean, you think you're born with that? It's your genes. It's your, you choose to.
So. I think so. Probably. I've never really been. Well, I take that back. I think if you were to ask some people that I used to know me when I was previously married and in Germany, there were probably some times where I was looked at as the grumpy guy.
Ah.
So I think maybe now, especially now that my life is a much more positive type of a life, that's probably had a huge effect. And I think there's probably been a season or seasons in my life where I was kind of looked at as the grumpy guy. But now, like, now with me and Natalie being together and kind of this new life we've created together, I've had several people reach out to me and just tell me that they see a huge difference in me and in my personality. And they're like, dude, we could totally tell you are very happy. You're a totally different person, kind of thing is kind of the consensus that I get from some people. But I've always just kind of felt that it's just not worth the time and energy to be negative, because it only makes things worse. If something's happening, I mean, there's only so much you can take. And then sometimes it all just kind of it's going to affect you at some point when, things are weighing you down, stress, money, whatever it might be. But it's just not worth the energy.
I bet I'd be willing to bet that your career has, the things that you've seen as a first responder, I bet that stuff has made you look at life as like, there's 100 out of 100 serious and shitty situations. And there's like, 16 on the scale, there's little inconveniences and stuff. And that I'd be willing to bet that has helped. I know there's probably a dark side to that, traumatic things you've been involved with and whatever, but you've seen probably life and death situations more than the average guy would. And I bet that perspective helps you realize the small shit, just let it stay small. And and it seems like, modeling and mentoring from your dad too, you had that attitude. If you can't control it, let it go. You've had to learn to not stress. You've had to learn how to not stress.
Yeah. You learn to count your blessings for sure. Yeah.
So, you ever get down these days, in maybe life in general is better, but if you have, I don't know, I just every now and then go through one of these down like a weekend, or like 2 days where I'm just kind of down and out. And I really know I'm going to bounce back. I'm just going to sulk for a couple days or sleep a little extra or whatever. But when you get down, how do you get out of that?
I think I do get down from time to time. I think a lot of that is just, maybe not so much negative self-talk, but like wanting to be a good dad and good husband and stuff like that. All these things kind of weigh on your mind all the time. Like Natalie will ask me, what are you thinking about? And literally all I ever think about is we need more money. The house something needs to be fixed in the house. Something on the car needs fixed. We have too much debt. Like I'm constantly thinking about everything that I need to be doing to like fix and make better. And so that gets me down from time to time because I feel like I'm either A, not doing enough, or B, I've just basically just dropped the ball. Like I need to be doing more kind of thing. And that will just kind of like really bug me. And it's affected me so much to the point where like sometimes at work, like my one kind of release at work is physical fitness and lifting weights. And so it'll get me down to the point where I just don't even want to do that. Like I just want to finish the work day, take my shower and go to bed kind of thing. But I don't know how I really kind of get out of those things. I don't have any kind of a coping mechanism. I think like you, like I know it's just going to pass. It's one of those things that comes and goes. I think it's natural for everyone to just kind of have a down moment or down day or whatever, and it'll just kind of wear you out a little bit. But they eventually kind of pass. And then I just kind of just pick myself up by my bootstraps and just get back at it. Cause I think I've heard the term where, I think it says nobody cares, get back to work kind of thing.
Yeah.
Nobody cares. I mean, because honestly, my problems, nobody else cares about my problems. They have their own problems to deal with. It's, and like I said earlier, I mean, I don't want to be at the negative Ned because it doesn't add to anything that you're trying to do in life. You don't want to be the negative guy because that kind of energy is just not worth it. It's not going to fix anything. It's not going to make anything better. So I think that's probably just, if I were to do anything to kind of cope with that kind of stuff, it's just, I try to realize and recognize it for what it is and understand that, okay, yeah, money might be stressing me out, and yeah, I need to make more money. So I'll be a little bit more aware of my spending habits, or, yeah, this needs to be fixed in the house. And when I get home from work, okay, I'm going to tackle this today. This needs to be taken care of. So let's get this done. And so as long as I'm making progress on the things that are stressing me out and doing something about it, like I said, if there's something I can do to fix the problem, and then I still don't do it, then it's my fault, kind of thing. If I'm not doing something to fix the situation, if I have some sort of control over it, then I need to be doing it. And that's usually kind of what I turn to. Like if there's something I could do, I try to analyze it and figure it out. It's like, all right, what can I do first? And then just kind of pick a direction and go.
That's a lonely place to be sometimes, man. When you're I heard a guy talking today, and he was talking about his very responsible job in kind of the IT world. All these major companies are using their product or whatever, and everyone is looking to him for the answer. And there's no one above him. He's the one who has to make the decision. And that's, he's got 700 people on his team or whatever. And there's a lot of stuff going on there, but in a small sense, we're that way in our family. We're really, it kind of comes down to the dad. I mean, the husband. To me, that's just the natural order of things, is that, we should lead our homes and so forth. And you do that, that's a lonely place to be sometimes. What do you get? Like, where you have this you have this very responsible way, you're always thinking about that. You're saying, and I respect that so much. I think that's what we should be doing, is focused on our job. And when you have a family, that's our job, is to take care of them. How do you disconnect and reboot and recharge your batteries and, kind of maintain your own truck, so to speak? Like, what allows you to kick back and enjoy life a little bit and stay away from all the responsible thoughts?
Well, as kind of interesting as it might sound, or maybe it might sound opposite, but the schedule we have at work, I work 48-hour shifts. Honestly, that's probably one of the bigger things that helps me kind of just stay focused on being present and taking care of the home, is because when I do go to work, I'm so caught up in what's happening at work, because we're always training, we're always responding to calls and whatever it might be. I have time to just be with myself and the guys at work. We're all friends basically, and I'm there with my buddies and kind of my own tribe at work, and we can kind of be with one another and do that. So that kind of helps me mentally kind of disconnect from the house, even though it's always kind of still on my mind. And then when I get back home, I'm able to just get back in there. But lately, as a family, we've been just doing a lot of beach and swimming type stuff. We got the Pensacola right down the road, so we will hit up the Florida beaches, or we've got the pool in the backyard, so we're constantly swimming. We've got season passes to the water park, which we did yesterday, and then the kids are actually swimming right now. So I try to get out of the house. We're so busy with what the kids have going on, and so we really try to promote that. And then in the past, I used to ride dirt bikes a lot, and like a lot of dads out there, we have financial commitments and things, and so I've sold 2 dirt bikes now,
Wow.
to help pay off debt and pay for things, and just to handle business that way. So right now I don't have a dirt bike, but for a little while, me and Leland were able to kind of share that hobby together, and so he actually was able to raise some money for his dirt bike. So when we sold the bikes, we were able to give him his money back, and so he was excited about that. But I would like to get back into that, but yeah, just honestly spending quality time with the family, really, whether it be sports or swimming or being outside. And then like recently, I've been getting back into the gym too, so that really kind of helps me connect, ground myself a little bit mentally, kind of get my mind to focus on just being physically active and setting goals that way, and kind of pursuing things there. So that helps. It's really helped too. Just like after losing, I mean, I've lost like 35 pounds. So, since November. And so that's really helped me just kind of sleep better. The kids have noticed my habits, my new habits. So, I mean, they're even eating leaner and healthier. Leland, he just mentioned to me that he's wanting to start lifting weights and stuff like that. So
he's right there at the age. Yeah.
Yeah. It's cool to see how my choices in terms of bettering my health and fitness is kind of wearing on the kids too. So even our oldest daughter, she wants us to help make her meal prep meals and stuff like that.
Oh, right on.
And so we do that together.
So you mentioned something when I was talking about, how do you disconnect? You're saying, well, you go to work for 48 hours. And I thought, man, I really think there's something important about that. But I wanted to talk about the opportunity that you have to be around dudes all the time. I think that's one of the things where men are the most isolated people on the planet. And that's what we need very much of, is guys around who like, just to tell you when you're full of shit, or, encourage you or give you some support or be a friend, and there's probably dudes there that, that you're not the most fond of, but what has been the value from military service and now service in the fire department you're in now? Are you on a base now? Are you, you're a civilian firefighter for the Air Force?
Yeah, I'm a DoD civilian firefighter on an Air Force base.
Okay.
Yeah.
But still, there's this camaraderie. I'm guessing that there's some dudes that you love. There's just the little rituals and the little things you have together.
Yeah.
It's funny. For some reason, I always see the local fire station guys in the grocery store when I'm there. I'll just kind of go every day almost to get my food for the day. But I see these guys in there, and I'm like, man, they're like a little family. They're like the family in here shopping.
Yeah,
and,
we really are.
So you get a lot of time together. You get a little bit of time away from home. Talk about the value of having dudes around you. What's that meant for your well-being?
I would even say it's pivotal. I would even say essential. If you don't have at least one dude in your life that you can either call or go to, you got to have somebody, because, the woman in your life or your mom or whoever it might be, they're just not going to understand the same way other men are going to understand.
Yeah.
And then, like you said too, like they're going to call you out on your shit. Like,
yeah.
We're not going to just like, oh, it's okay, honey. You're doing great. No, stupid ass. Like, you're fucking up, dude.
Yeah.
You need to fix it, kind of thing. And I've said that to my friends too, when they're telling me some dumb crap it is, that whatever decision that they've made or whatever path that they're on, like they're screwing up. Like, look, man, you need to cut it out, because like this is where you're going if you don't. And dude, it's without a doubt been a massive help to me, especially just kind of coming back to my family after shift and being able to kind of like let some of this stress out on some of my friends and talk about things with my bros at work, and then kind of recalibrate and then come back home and be able to more properly take care of my family, because they're all dealing with stuff too. They all have their own families, their kids have their own struggles and all kinds of things, and and we all pretty much know what's happening in each other's lives, um, and we just get to talk to each other, while we're working out. We'll have 3 or 4 of us guys in there lifting weights all at the same time, and a lot of us will have a lifting partner. Some guys might be running together, stuff like that. And even while we're training too, we'll be training and having conversations too. I mean, it's kind of just like an open dialogue kind of thing, where you're going to have a couple guys at work where you can just go to and talk about, oh man, this happened at the house or whatever. And it's good to be able to have somebody you can just kind of talk to about it. It's almost like a therapist, honestly. It's almost, you can just kind of get it out and talk to somebody about it, because, a lot of men we all just kind of tend to hold things in too much and too long.
What kind of things would you say, if you look around at just men in general, maybe American men, maybe men your age, maybe what do you see as problems or like errors that men are making? What kinds of things do you think men are failing the most at right now? Just in general, these aren't your buddies necessarily, but just across the board.
I was thinking about this a little, and I honestly, I think touching on a little bit about like the toxic kind of mindset when it comes to what it is to be a man kind of thing, the whole tough guy ego thing. I'm at least I view myself, I'm plenty masculine in the ways that I need to be. Maybe I'm not as physically fit, or maybe I don't know how to fight in terms of martial arts.
Some
like I don't know jujitsu, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It's always been something I want to do, but there's some guys out there, they really just hold on to this ego, tough guy kind of mindset or personality or identity or whatever. But they take that into their relationships, and at home, they take it into their relationships at work. There's no correcting them. You give them some kind of criticism, and there's, they're always right, that kind of thing. And so I honestly just dropping that whole ego, tough guy kind of identity, and just try to be teachable, try to be humble, and try to at least consider the possibility that you're wrong.
Mm-hmm.
You may have a spouse or a wife or a son telling you that you're wrong in their own way, and that whole kind of mindset is going to get in the way of your relationships. It's going to damage your relationships, possibly permanently. It really just, it doesn't do anything to help. I mean, you could be tough guy and have that ego all you want. And it's great, but if you don't use it properly, it's just not going to do anything for you.
Yeah. In the short run, you might get some respect, people fear you or something like that. But in the long run, that's loneliness and misery. No one's ever really happy when they're living this kind of self-absorbed, ego-centered life. I'm with you 100% on that. What else do you see? What about the opposite of that spectrum? A lot of guys I see in therapy, they're super nice guys. They're almost too, they're the doormat or whatever, and they can't tell someone to knock it off or whatever. They can't set a boundary or those kind of things. Do you see any of the opposite end of that spectrum where the guy is overly?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, even in like a career field where you have, alpha type guys in the fire department and military, there's guys, they just don't want to offend anyone. They don't want to speak up for themselves. They don't want to cause problems. And it's not really about causing problems, but like you said, setting boundaries. You have to, like you said, sometimes a lion's got to roar kind of thing. And sometimes these guys, they just don't ever roar. Essentially, they don't speak up for themselves. They don't say anything. And a lot of times, I would even say some of these guys that get into these just nasty, nasty divorces, a lot of it is because they didn't set boundaries to begin with. Because at the end of the day, you are the man, you're the dad, you're the father, you're the husband. you have to set that boundary, and it has to be respected. You don't have to be like my way or the highway type of guy, but if you don't take that role as dad or father, and you don't expect the people in your household to respect that role, and then when they don't respect you in that capacity, you only have yourself to blame, because
Yeah.
Your spouse isn't going to respect you. If you let them just kind of walk all over you, they're going to take advantage of you. Your kids are going to do whatever it is that they want to do, because they know, oh, well, dad's word doesn't mean anything. I'm just going to do what I want, or go ask mom, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I mean, if you're just the nice guy, I mean, it's obviously you have to be nice, but you don't have to be a doormat, kind of thing. Stick up for yourself, know your worth, set your boundaries. And then when people cross those boundaries, put them back in place, sternly, but lovingly, kind of thing. You don't always have to rule with an iron fist type of thing, but if you don't address the issue, it's just going to persist.
Are you I don't want to have you say anything embarrassing or anything, but are you the leader? Would you say that you're the leader of your house? I don't mean that you're out there banging your fist on the walls all the time, but does everyone see you and accept you? And do you see yourself as the leader of your household?
100%. Yeah, for sure. And honestly, it's not all because of me. Like I said earlier, my wife supports me in that role. Even though 3 out of our 4 kids are hers biologically.
Right.
But she supports me in that role as the head of household.
Mm-hmm.
She doesn't allow the kids to step out of the line, that kind of way. But she and my family, I think they all view me in that way. But I wouldn't necessarily say I put myself in front of my spouse, my wife. I think she and I are standing, side by side, leading the family together. But yeah, ultimately, it's like we said, it's our role or our responsibility as the dad and father to kind of lead the family. And I think they all do, look to me in that way, because a lot of times, if it's a decision on something, maybe a little more serious, she'll consult with me and she'll ask me for my advice or what would I do. And then if it's a discussion we have and we finally come to a conclusion, not that it was my way, but she and I will discuss it and take care of it together. But she's always making sure that, I'm at the decision-making process and stuff like that. So she doesn't ever go around me, make decisions like that. But for sure, yeah. Not that, I lead the family in like this, like I said, my way or the highway type of thing, but it's respected, I think, among the kids and the wife.
See, I think that's why I pick up all the love in your, I think that's why I'll pick up all the love in your family is there's love, there's leadership. He's clearly, I mean, you just look at this video, you guys, he's clearly the leader of this family. But he's saying he doesn't put himself in front of that. He's trying to not live in his ego. He's trying to not be, but he happens to be, not just because he's probably the taller, louder guy, the taller, louder person there. That's not what makes you, but they respect him because of the way he loves them. You're showing a lot of love to this family. I mean, just the way she wrote her little thing about you and boy, that stuff was moving to me to just sense that it really is. There's a lot of respect for you and they really love you and you cherish them. It's really evident in that. And if it's working, this blended situation is working.
Yeah.
It's because of you. If you're the leader and it's working, it's because of you, brother. And that's why I'm really happy that's why I'm really happy to, there was a couple of guys who chimed in about you. There was multiple people who said yes to Mitch receiving this 2023 Father of the Year award. Let me ask you something, man. A couple more questions here before we wrap up. Tell me something that you're still trying to figure out. And what's your method? What's something you want to master or learn how to do or be, and how are you approaching that?
First thing that comes to mind is just being patient with our son, really. Not that he's particularly hard to parent, but becoming a father overnight, like I did, being patient with all the kids in general, but mostly being patient with him because I feel so much responsibility to make sure that I am the person that he can look up to as that role model of dad. Because we haven't talked about it, but their dad has passed away, so he's not around anymore because he passed away a couple of years ago in 2020. And that really kind of changed the dynamic of things too. But I think the one thing that I would really like to be better at or whatever is maybe just being patient, because there's a lot of times where something will happen where I'm getting upset and I want to just like yell all the things out that are on my mind and maybe even call him all the things that are on my mind. But, those things are super damaging to kids. I mean, if you go calling your kids stupid over and over and over, they're going to believe it within themselves that they're stupid or whatever it might be. But you can't just be, and, it slips, sometimes we get angry and we say things that we shouldn't. But yeah, just being patient. I've noticed that when I start to feel myself losing it a little bit, I'll be like mid sentence and I'll be like really kind of going in at him, and I'll just stop what I'm saying. I'll just like, oh, and I'll just stop, and I'm like, I'll take just a moment and like remind myself, I'm like, look, he's 10-year-old boy, like you got to chill out just a little bit. And I'm like, okay. And then I'll come back to the conversation. I'm like, all right, look, man, this is what I'm trying to get you to understand. This, and this, or X, Y, and Z. So this is, those kinds of things, because there's so many times where I have to correct him or even the other kids. And I'm very critical of myself of how I handle things when it comes to correcting or discipline. And I really try to make sure I do it right the first time, and it doesn't always happen. But and then I'll also, if I do step out of line, I'll go to my wife and I'll say, hey, how do you think I handled this? Because a lot of times I need that feedback, and I don't, because I'm questioning myself, like, did I do the right thing or say the right thing? And I'll ask her, because I depend on her advice a little bit with that. And she'll say, yeah, you did fine, but maybe, I would do this instead, or try this next time, or she'll reassure me. She'll like, no, you're good. Like, he was out of line. You had to say that to him. Like, we just had this moment the other day where he was totally out of line. And, sometimes kids, are disrespectful and not necessarily meaning to be, but they need to understand that, that kind of stuff's not going to fly. And so, I had to put him in his place, in terms of, we are the parents, you are the kid, you listen to what we say, and sometimes you might just not like it, but this is just how it's going to go, kind of thing. And I felt, I didn't really feel bad for it, but I wanted to make sure that some of the things I said was, wasn't out of line. So I'll lean on her for that advice, and she'll be like, no, you're good to go. So yeah, just kind of being patient with the kids, making sure I don't step too far out of line. And if I do, I try to make sure that I'm not, like I said, unteachable. I try to be teachable, try to be humble, at least enough to know that I screwed up. And if I do, I'll apologize to him. Like, I'll go back into him like, hey buddy, sorry about earlier. Like, and then I'll kind of go back, like, this is what I meant. This is, I'll explain to him kind of my expectations or whatever.
Where you were coming from. That's powerful.
Yeah, where I was coming from.
So if you guys look at what he just kind of described, he described a situation that a lot of dads go through. You've got a frustrating preteen here, and, a boy who's getting into his testosterone and he wants to get testy and stuff and push the boundaries and whatever sometimes. And Mitch is saying that he's recognizing like his really important role that he has. And so he wouldn't be thinking about how to do this the right way the first time. He wouldn't be catching himself in the middle of the criticism or in the middle of the rant or whatever. He's catching himself in the middle and stopping. He wouldn't have the humility to go to his wife and say, hey, here's what went down. How do you think I did? He wants the feedback. all of that really says that's responsibility. That's good engagement, yes, we're going to lose it. And we need to be the model to our kid. You're going to do something wrong. You're going to lose your cool someday. You're going to whatever. And you can do a lot of good by going back and saying, hey, I could have done better with this, and acknowledge your error or whatever you might want to clear things up. So all of that is just, those are great examples, man. Learning how to be patient. So how are you, in addition to what you're trying to do, how will you make that a continued focus for yourself?
I try to just remind myself, I try to recognize when those things are happening. Like if I can see something happening and I know it's going to be a moment where I need to have patience, I'll mentally just all right, listen, they're kids, they're acting as kids, they don't have the same mental and emotional, I'm trying to think of the word, mental and emotional maturity.
Right.
That, we would want them to have, because they're kids or whatever. But I try to just recognize that, okay, what's happening right now is testing my patience, realize that they're kids, and try to go into those situations with just more love, honestly, than just kind of correction, or just more love, going into it, just understanding more. So
how would you rate yourself overall? How would you rate yourself? Now be generous, but, and I know I know you have this humble side, but man, be generous, be an easy grader for yourself, like A-, B+, C, F, what?
I think overall I'd probably give myself a B+ on most days.
Okay.
I hit the A. The A and the A+ a lot of times, but I think, maybe that's just me being critical, but I think on most days I'm at least a B+ on most any given day, I would say.
Nice. That's pretty good. That's that'll work. That's, if every man was a B+ dad, dude, we would be in a lot different world. And so you're one of the guys, man, who really just seems to epitomize this whole message. I'm happy to talk to you. Mitch has been like an OG from the beginning with the Alpha Quorum, the Facebook page. And I think you have some connections to some other people there. Obviously, people are tagging you and stuff. And so appreciate the things that you've shared there. I guess I have one last question. Mm-hmm. What's the most alpha attribute about you? Like a trait that you're proud of, you can own it as like a talent or a gift or some kind of special strength that you have?
I was thinking about this too, and I asked my wife again. I said, hey, what would you say? Because I like to kind of see what she says, because sometimes she'll bring things up that I didn't consider. And this is what she said, and I agree, and I think that's what I'm going to stick with is she said that I always tend to have really great advice.
Okay.
And that my dad was the same way. Like, you can ask any one of my siblings. I can call my dad. Any one of them can call him, and they could get great advice. Not that he knows it all or anything, but he is just so wise. And when she told me that, I was like, yeah, I could see that, because a lot of people, my friends, and honestly, I don't know why, but for whatever reason, sometimes my buddies' spouses will even, not that it's like a thing, but it has happened, they would come to me and say, hey, they would ask me for advice on whatever it might be. And a lot of times I just kind of direct them to go back to their husband. But if it's like, outside of my boundaries, but people tend to kind of come to me for advice. And I think, like you said earlier, I've gone through a good bit amount of life with the military and work and travel and divorce and everything like that. So I've experienced a good bit, and I'm able to kind of maybe logically just kind of think through things. Sometimes when people are kind of stuck on something and they just kind of get in their own mind or in their feelings about something, I'm probably a little bit better at logically kind of thinking through stuff and problem solving. Yeah.
Well, one reason that they come to you, I'm sure, is that you listen first. You know, if you're giving good advice and that's a gift of yours, then it means that you're also approachable, that they can trust you. They trust what you say. They've watched what you've done in your life, and they come to you because they think he'll know. He's smart. He's made some good decisions. You know, he's got a steady life and whatever. And then you're willing to listen. So they come to you and you're willing to hear their situation. That's another requirement in order to be able to give good advice, is that you're a good listener. And then you've got this, you know, really steady, logical minded energy about you. I don't know. I'm guessing that's what I've found in a lot of like fire guys, especially, is just this kind of chill thing. But when there's a need to raise the energy, that happens quickly too.
Yeah.
Mitch, man, I just really appreciate getting to know you a little bit here today, brother.
Dude, thank you so much.
I've seen you from a distance. You know, I've known you on Facebook for 6 years, I think, probably, or something like that. Around the time we started that, whenever we started that Facebook group. And so appreciate what you've done there and just what you're doing with your family down there. Congratulations again on your award for this year, Father of the Year. You've really shown us through that and through this conversation here today. What I'm going to do is share this kind of thing when someone comes along who has something that, you know, you've talked about that I want them to hear. I'm going to direct them to you. And then this is a legacy for your kids. It'll be out there forever, man. It's going on the YouTube and all that. So I appreciate you participating, being willing to do that. You guys, we're highlighting this man here because of his sense of responsibility, his resourcefulness, his reverence, and the respect that he has for life and for his people, for his energy, endurance, engagement as a stepfather, as a servant of our country through the Air Force, and then serving his community there in Mississippi. He's taken on a lot of responsibility as a stepfather. He's disciplined and discerning and clearly a distinguished man with some distinction. What is the name of this mustache? What is that? Is that a style? Does it have a name to it? That's a cool look.
I don't know. Maybe handlebar.
Handlebar.
I think it might be like the painter's mustache or something like that.
Yeah, it's awesome. It suits you, man.
Thank you.
I love it. Anyway, Mitch Baxter, thank you so much. You guys, until next time, no excuses. Alpha up.
Thanks.
If you're a man that controls his own destiny, a man that is always in the pursuit of being better, you are in the right place. You are responsible. You are strong. You are a leader. You are a force for good. Gentlemen, you are the Alpha, and this is the Alpha Quorum.